Welcome to the Orange County Forum, where newsmakers keep you informed about local, national, and global issues that impact Orange County today.
We'll start with asking our panel to give us their high-level, hopefully quick view of the report and the three critical indicators that were pointed out, since it makes it easy to do it geographically. Steve, you want to start?
Certainly, yeah. And so let's start with health, the health indicator. If you turn to page 46, it gives you an idea just using one proxy of health. If you just look at the difference in overweight/obesity in the county and how it's disproportionately skewed. And the population that tends to be the most overweight is also the population, if you go to the second, and the education differences. I think if you look at pages 26 and 27, and if you stare at it for a while, I think a 3D image pops out at you. But just look at, in a couple of key education indicators, the differences throughout the county. And that is something, as I said, we've been talking about from the very beginning of the report. We have to understand how to move the bar. Specifically, if you turn to page 36, there's a little bubble at the bottom of the page that talks about the opportunity gap and the disproportionate impact on the Latino population within the county. And then the final specific element I'll pull your attention to is housing. Obviously, we have a keen interest in housing. If you flip back to page 8, this is like lightning test flip paging thing, whatever going on. But if you flip back to page 8, you'll see a little bubble at the bottom of the page, which I think captures the essence. We have a housing crisis. Why do we have a housing crisis? And this is not complicated. It's because we have skewed the market. The market is significantly distorted. If the market was allowed to work, the housing crisis would be much less. So when you shrink supply and you have high demand, what happens? It's not complicated. And the consequence for the population that can't keep up with the price is overcrowding. And so at the end of the day, overcrowding has significant not only individual and personal impacts, but neighborhood and societal impacts. And we've talked about this in the past, that if you exceed design capacity in a neighborhood, you design the neighborhood for population X, you put 2X in the neighborhood wears out faster than it was designed for, which is a cost the entire community bears. Just real quick, last point, page 52, the Latino community bears a disproportionate cost for living in Orange County. The other population that you should take a look at are the seniors in Orange County, because this is still one of the fastest present company excluded, one of the fastest aging counties in the country. And when you take a look and you add it up, and 20% of the seniors in Orange County are living at the poverty level, that is something that should be a conversation everybody's worried about. So just trying to connect the dots and understand that all of these issues are linked, and there's a particular population in the county that bears a disproportionate brunt of the costs associated with all of those negative indicators. So with that as a happy intro.
We're done. Adjourn.
I want to go first next time.
Me too.
Max, you're up.
This report really is valuable. It really teaches us all a lesson about kind of the conditions that exist in the county. And one of the things that I'm particularly focused on is making sure that people understand how these issues all affect us, because they do. And it's easy to think, you look through the report and you see the problems that exist in Santa Ana or Anaheim or somewhere else. Well, these problems all come home to roost to us. I mean, when you look at the overall averages for the county, they seem to be kind of okay. But there are parts of this, what Steve was talking about, when you overlay the different maps, there are certain parts of this community that are really struggling to get by, and where the folks that live there, and we're not talking about people that are just layabouts. These are what we would refer to as the working poor, people that just can't support themselves on the wages that they're making in the county today. But they're trying like heck, and the opportunity gap that Steve talked about is important. There are some really good signs of positive movement. I think the fact that the high school dropout rate continues to move down, we made some progress there, down to 5.7% of the high school class. The latest one were dropped out of school, which I think is an improvement from, we were closer to 10% a few years ago when we created our Face 2024 strategy. Family financial instability is down a little bit, still not good, but it's down. A good drop in terms of the uninsured in Orange County. We went from 17% to 12% that are uninsured, which means that people have the access to health care if they choose to use it. Now the question is whether or not we can make the facilities and the resources available to those people to take advantage of having the insurance at this point, but we're making progress in that part. And the homeless and housing insecure children actually came down from 32,000 to 26,000 based on the school, the Board of Education. But critical issues, what Steve talked about a second ago, I mean, the fact that we have 26,000 students that are housing insecure or homeless. And most of those, by the way, are living doubled or tripled up in inadequate housing, not living on the streets or under a bridge somewhere, but they are in a position where they really can't get a good quality education because of the condition that they live in, or they can't, they're very challenged. Cost of living in OC is about 85% higher than our peer groups. 85%. So when you look at the OC poverty rate, I mean the national poverty rate of 24,000 for a family of four, you can just throw that out the window in Orange County. The numbers come to about just less than 1 out of 4 residents in Orange County live in poverty today. Effective poverty, not the national poverty level, but what it costs to live in Orange County. The opportunity gap, I think Steve already talked about that. Children's health and well-being, we still have 52% of our kids are ready for kindergarten when they enter kindergarten, 52%. And if you go to the chart, and I didn't do the research, I don't have all the page numbers written down. I'll trust you can find it yourself. But if you look at the graph, the average belies the statistic, I mean the individual statistics by city, because if you look at that 52%, when you go down to the lower end, the lowest two schools districts, 18% of the kids are ready to go to kindergarten when they get 18%. And it goes up much higher, and that really does track with the financial stability index, as well as all the numbers that you see. Childhood obesity is about the same as it was last year. We're at about 30. Obesity and overweight, it's about 33%. High school dropout rate I mentioned at 5.7 is great, but the numbers at Anaheim, Santa Ana, and Garden Grove are still way above where we'd like them to be. A couple of other quick points of interest, and Sarah again mentioned some of the innovative ideas that are shown in the book. I'd call your attention to those. Cal Optima providing $1 million a year to ensure that homeless that are coming out of hospital care have some place to go so they can recuperate, so they can recover from that. That's something that didn't exist here a year ago. The OC Pathways work that the Department of Education is doing, the work on STEM education, the number of our kids that are taking STEM-related education classes is up about 40% over the last few years. And I think what you'll also see in this report is many signs of collaboration and cooperation where we're working together. The one thing that we know for sure is nobody in this room, nobody in this county can solve these problems alone. It takes all of us working together to solve these problems, and it takes knowing what the challenges are and where the issues are that we can work together to focus on. That's where we start, and that's what this report does. So I really hope you'll take a little time and peruse it and find the area of interest to you. So,
Lucy, your turn.
Geez, I want to go second next time. So the guys they've given you great insight and highlights of the key issues that I also saw, and I want to particularly commend the authors for focusing on the innovation that is uniquely Orange County. The things that we do here don't always get the attention that other counties with a bigger media market might have. And so having those collaborative issues, I mean, it truly takes a village to make sure that the numbers that we do have continue to track down. I'm looking particularly at Latino education attainment and high school graduation rates. And so having those innovative collaboratives, and that was one of the ones on mine was Cal Optima too. I thought, nobody has a model like a Cal Optima, and it's like Orange County's best kept secret. People don't even know what it really is. So to get involved in helping keep our homeless healthy and off the street adds to obviously the metrics of the entire report. Because they focused on innovation, it's really important to me also to share, and Max and I, Shelley and I have had this conversation. One of the things that I really like is that it isn't just focused on bad news stories, on the stories that we know we have to address, because the business community uses this report and they use it to address marketing dollars that are coming into their businesses to help fund our nonprofit community. They want to see the good things in Orange County in addition to the things that need those marketing dollars. And so by having a work that focuses on key innovators and key collaboratives, it helps the business community then go pitch better internally within their own companies on how to secure more money for Orange County to help make a difference in some of these metrics. So I really commend the authors on that point. The ones that I wrote down, in addition to Max, the UCI Beal Center and the Cal State Fullerton Center for Entrepreneurship, helping startups start up here. There's a whole issue about scaling up, which I'd like to talk about at the end. But the startups here are pretty remarkable, and we have a pretty robust diversity in our tech community here that is sort of also a little secret of Orange County. I love the permanent supportive housing services with housing first mentality. So housing and supportive services as opposed to the traditional model of transitional housing and then you eventually put them in permanent housing. Get them in housing first. I really love permanent supportive housing is a great innovative model. And you're finding that the federal system is picking up on that more and more. Housing first as an item. Again, housing continues to be a big issue for us. The affordable housing collaboratives with BIA, the Orange County Business Council, Kennedy Commission, it is remarkable what we will do to meet with cities that aren't doing the right thing, and we will meet, we will help work with issues that they might have, help with the community engagement, but at the end of the day, we'll also litigate and we'll also legislate to try to get the right thing done to house our people here. It's a very interesting collaborative, and I think we're just learning to exercise our muscles a little bit more on that one. A lot more needs to be done. The Department of Ed and their Quality Start OC, supporting early learning experiences for pre-K, Orange County Pathways we've talked about. The whole point of all of these things, I think, is really important, and to emphasize Steve's point, his first point, is all the dots are connected. If our children are not healthy, if our children are not well educated, they can't fill the high-paying jobs that are already here, ready to get filled, and pay into a tax system to support a growing senior population retiring in place in Orange County. If we don't take care of this continuum of our people here, from the youngest to the oldest, this is not a healthy economy, and Orange County risks losing the greatness that is and the uniqueness that is ours. And I think that continuity story needs to get told more and more, and especially when the focus, looking at the largest age cohort, is 65 plus people. Who's going to be paying into our tax system for those municipal services you all know and love if we're not making sure our young people stay here, can afford to stay here, and fill the jobs that we're growing here? So I think that's a really important point that I would end on in this opening that kind of connects the dots among all of us.
Steve, you made an interesting point, and a number that I found a little bit stunning a few months ago and just saw it again recently, is that the LA Orange County area has the highest density of people per housing unit in the country. We don't think ourselves as dense. We think of New York or San Francisco, Chicago, those big cities as being dense. A lot of people in this, and I hate to say it because I've been here 30 years and we seem to be back to another slow growth movement, think that if we don't build anymore, we'll keep people out. And the truth is, as long as our businesses are succeeding like they have been and hiring like they see, they will come here and just double up and triple up. Can you talk about how we get over that sort of divide of people are going to come here and work, and they're going to live here, and if the prices go up, they're going to fix it the old-fashioned way, doubling and tripling up?
Sure. So one of the things that I think we want to try and get out of today's conversation is to empower all of you, exhort all of you to become myth busters because unfortunately, there's a lot of myths out there. And one of the big ones, if we don't build it, they won't come. You know, the city, anybody here from the city of Santa Ana? Santa Ana? You know, Santa Ana tried that for 10 years in the 90s. They went 10 years where I think there was a net increase of about 400 housing units in the city of Santa Ana. And meanwhile, Pat probably knows the numbers better than I do, the population grew by about 40,000 people. And so at the end of the day, the people are, how many people in here care about people? Well, because there's a lot of people that don't care about people. And the people that don't care about people are currently in control of most of the hallways of power in the state of California right now. And so the challenge we have is, let's be honest about the people we're talking about. It's somewhere around 65 to 70% of our population growth is births over deaths. So these are our own children we're talking about. And so the density that you're talking about is not density by design. And so it's completely appropriate for people being upset with density when it's not by design. And that's the consequence of not being responsible and having an adequate supply of housing for the people that are already here and for the people we know that are going to be here. You know, demographics is the easiest thing to project. Somebody that's 4 years old today will be 5 years old tomorrow. And you can play that out. You know, at the end of the day, we have the basic numbers and we should know how to respond. And unfortunately, there's so many distortions that are currently existing in our system. You know, how we overcome those distortions with the truth is something that all of you, I think, need to be really actively participating in. The two biggest barriers that we have, I think number one is fear. There are a lot of people that are fearful of those people, and so they're going to oppose things because of their fear. And the second is selfishness. And so, you know, there are plenty of communities that don't like to engage in a conversation about this. But, you know, we've talked about in the past, how many of your children can live in the community that they grew up in? Well, if you don't want your children nearby, how about your grandchildren? And if we're not thinking in that kind of a mindset, how do we accommodate the natural demographic growth of a region in a logical, well-designed, well-planned manner? Then we're going to end up with the overcrowding and the consequences of density not by design.
Which is interesting too, because I've used this line many, many times. You've probably heard it, but I've had, as former state housing director, I used to get all the time. But our city's built out, Lucy. We're built out, and I go, oh, that's great information. Could you send me your no-sex ordinance? Because, see, you get it, right? If you send me your no-sex ordinance, I'll make it a model ordinance for every city to adopt. And that way you won't have to build anything more because you're built out. You know, actuaries are saying we're going to live till 120, so we still have better start building. And I think it is that design aspect of it that really makes a difference when you plan for growth and build those plans. It's so much easier for folks than if you're doing it on the fly.
You know, Lucy, you might add to that and talk a little bit about the challenge related to that because of our geopolitical system, because we have 34 cities plus the county in Orange County. It makes it very hard to have an overall master plan for how you're going to develop the community. So, you know, a lot of cities will say, well, you know, they have an overcrowding problem, or they're not doing their share to provide affordable housing. And there are some cities that are doing a pretty good job with it, but there are a lot of cities that aren't taking on the challenge, that are looking the other way and saying, we don't want the challenges, we don't want the problems, we like the way we are right now.
Well, Max, you were talking on your opening remarks, and more or less you talked about what some people often call the donut of Orange County. The wealth is on the outside, and then we have this center part of the county, has a lot of great culture, a lot of great people, but certainly doesn't have the wealth. How, from your standpoint, do we at least share the knowledge that both sides have to somewhat peacefully coexist? And how do you create an environment where someone always says, that town can fix our problem?
Yeah. Well, if I had the real answer to all those, I'd probably be doing something else, but I'll give you my quick thoughts. I mean, first of all, you talk about why we should care, why we should worry about this. When you think about the difference between the average high school dropout and the average high school graduate, and you fast forward for 50 years, the impact financially on our community, not on those individuals, but on all of us here in the community, and I think of Orange County as a community, the difference for each student we're talking about over 50 years is $300,000. So you multiply that by the 2,000 plus kids that didn't graduate from high school this year, And then take a discount factor off that if you want to, but you're still talking about $500 million of impact over the next 50 years. And we do that year after year after year. So if you don't think we should care about the folks that aren't graduating, whether it's in Santa Ana, Anaheim, Garden Grove, wherever it is, you should probably think again. I mean, in terms of what we do about that, I think as we begin to know about it, it is, and I've become a real fan of most of the school systems around here. And I say most just because I haven't seen a lot of them, but we've been exposed to a lot of the departments of ed and the school districts themselves. And they're great schools and great teachers out there. We need to find ways to support them as opposed to
Let them do their craft.
to let them do their craft. But there are so many things that we can do to help them, to educate the parents on what they can do with their, I mean, most of the parents want to make sure their kids have an opportunity to succeed. A lot of times they don't understand the importance of making sure that they actually have books in the house, or that they read to their kids on a regular early basis, or that those kids are ready to go to elementary school, to kindergarten when they get to that point. But there are so many things that we can do and are being done that we can accelerate and expand in the community to help reach those families, reach those students, to do more, to make it so the schools can do their job and to create the education. As far as the housing, I wish I had. That's a tough one. I think that having the answer to that one, I'll throw that one back to Steve. Maybe he's got a better answer in terms of how we coordinate some of that. But it really is a challenge. I think part of it is making sure we educate. If you get everybody to do a little bit, nobody has to do a lot.
Well, and don't forget, and I think it's referenced in here as well, Dr. Wallace Walrod created the Orange County Housing Scorecard, where we looked at every city's numbers in Orange County and the county, and we looked at jobs every city was creating compared to every building permit they were issued. And the gold standard is 1 house for every 1.5 jobs, gold standard. So we can agree that 3 families living in a house is probably not good living, healthy, not impactful of infrastructure. Houses weren't designed for 3 families when they were designed for 1 family. And so when we look at jobs creation city by city, we're able to say to those cities and rank them, not grade them, but rank them, who is the best at jobs housing balance? Everybody loves jobs. Houses are where jobs go to sleep at night, and they forget they have to connect the two. So thanks to the business councils and that work there, we're getting out that information to say, who are the leaders, Irvine and Anaheim? Who are the guys that might need to step up a little bit more? Is Villa Park gonna really ever approve a multifamily in their community? Probably not, but we're gonna keep them somewhere near the bottom of the list because of their jobs creation and their housing numbers, for example. So there is a metric out there.
What is it? Oh, Steve.
I was just gonna, so point number 1 for this audience is be myth busters.
Right.
So know the truth and hold people accountable to the truth. Don't let them get away with it. Number 2 is, Orange County is innovative in a ton of ways and has been incredibly creative. But one of the primary innovations that's come out of Orange County that has been exported to the entire planet is planning and design and master planning and
Right.
master plan communities. I mean, you have such a rich legacy of innovation, of creating great neighborhoods and great communities. Well, you stopped innovating a number of decades ago. It's time to start innovating again, because to think that you can continue to do it the way that you have always done it as a community evolves and matures is just not going to work. And so use your innovation to take a look at your land. There's not a single city in Orange County that's built out. There's massive amounts of land that are being underutilized, misutilized, and for which there are opportunities to be creative and innovative to take care of people, to provide housing for people. And so I would challenge, who is the most innovative city in the county, and see what they can come up with. How many of you think Washington, D.C. is going to solve these problems for us? How many of you think Sacramento is going to solve these problems for? It's on us. And your cities have all the power they need to solve the problems. It's a matter of being innovative and applying that innovation in real time, in the real world. We can do this.
Because isn't it, at the end of the day, and we're talking about housing now, but there's some also other corollaries here, is that it's too easy to build million-dollar homes, because everyone at the end of the day will agree, okay, I really don't want that ridge graded and homes on there, but if they're luxury homes, it'll raise the value of my home. That's okay. I mean, and there are other, you know, bits of this too, is how do you get people not to do the easy things, but the tough things?
Well, and I think that's why Steve's call to action for all of us to understand the myths and the facts of affordable housing, for example. There's not one study exists anywhere that building an affordable housing project next to market rate housing lowers the value of the market rate. In some cases, there are wonderful examples where the affordable housing actually looks better than the market rate housing, and it would seem that it might be the other way around. So it's getting those facts out. You know, there's great information, there's great tools to use.
Page 18, if you want not to be shamelessly
Good.
commercial.
Good.
But page 18, we just had a grand opening of a new affordable housing project in San Clemente. I would challenge any of you to, number one, find it and be able to describe it as affordable. And number two, if any of you would not want to live there, I'd be shocked.
Right, exactly right.
Speaking of, one of the interesting numbers that was in our paper about a week ago was, and it was sort of derided, but that there are permits or plans for another 100,000 units of housing in Orange County. And some people go, oh my gosh, how can we have 100,000? Well, when you have 1.1 million already, and you add 100,000, that's a 9% growth, so look at your block and add one home.
Right.
And then that's it. And do you think that that's aware that the challenge, whether you call it a crisis, a challenge, or the like, is that where that we're, unless we change the way we think, we're going to run out of these new units, and as long as our employers keep on doing the job, and then on the flip side, I turn to you, are our employers aware of that, and are they going to do anything about it going forward?
Well, I think first of all, I mean, there are, you know, if we build those 100,000 units, there's still opportunities for development. And there are plenty of sites throughout this county that are underutilized or you know, old property that could be commercial, could be other residential, et cetera, that can be repurposed, that can be used in a different way. Especially in areas where you have less impact on the infrastructure. If you go near transportation, if you go near main corridors for opportunities like that. And frankly, the cities have got to be more aggressive in identifying those sites and entitling them and zoning them so that people not only can do high density projects there or low affordable projects, but so they have to. I mean, because you can set a minimum density as well as you can set a maximum density on a piece of land. And they've also got to be prepared to provide financing, to provide some support for that, or to provide some of their political will to get the project done and stand up and say, we're going to build this project. I mean, too often people think of an affordable project as the tenements that are in, you know, down, you know, are on Manhattan that you know, that should be knocked down and rebuilt. And the fact is, what Steve and Lucy were both saying, there are great projects out there that can be built that are very, very livable and very, very compatible with the rest of the community. And there are opportunities in every one of our communities to do those projects.
The perfect visual for you is, think about this. Does every DMV have to be a single-story building with a sea of parking? We are so much smarter than that. This is Orange County, for God's sakes. We can do things better than that. So.
Well, and so point number 3, as far as the takeaway from here, number 1, be a myth buster. Number 2, be innovative and creative. And number 3 is to be for something, because the forces of no are growing stronger by the day. And it's fascinating because they're on the far left and they're on the far right. I mean, there is no political ideal. There's this anti-mindset that's politically neutral. How many of you have been to a planning commission meeting in the last year? This is actually disproportionately high. Sorry to all of you. I remember the first time I was at a planning commission meeting in Victoria was expecting me to come home. She's like, where are you? And it's like, well, you know, this will easily go to midnight. So going to planning commission meetings, but the forces of no are showing up. If the forces of yes don't show up, you're not giving your planning commissioners nor your elected officials any support or cover for doing the right thing. And sometimes it's really hard to do the right thing when you have 500 people shouting you down from the public. So the forces of yes, the people that care about people, need to start showing up.
Let's talk about education, and since I've just finished 17 years of public education in Orange County, you know, maybe I'll just keep my own opinions of thought. But we talk about, you know, certainly there's a lot of high, you know, performing students here. We often talk about the low performing students here. But what is it going to take to elevate, you know, the whole level? because, I mean, obviously, you know, there's always the stories about the kids who have the 5.0 and took 7,000 AP classes, and obviously the dropouts are a problem. But do you think enough is done here in Orange County to raise the bar across the board for education?
Max?
Well, I don't think it's ever enough. I mean, I don't think you can do, there's no maximum to what you can do. But I think in terms of what it takes, it takes a whole variety of things, Jonathan. There's no, I wish there was a silver bullet that we could pull out and say, okay, this is the answer for what we do. But we've got to make sure, you know, even whether it's in the low performing or the high performing, or as you're saying, talking about the bread and butter, kind of that middle section in there, we've got to make sure that we're approaching it all along the continuum of education, because too often we want to say, well, what's happening with the dropout rate? That's where we want to, let's worry about the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. Well, they didn't become dropouts in 11th grade. They became dropouts in pre-K when they didn't get the early introduction to reading and the support, et cetera. So it starts all along the way, and a lot of that is parental education and making sure that parents know what's available, making sure that the system's in place where we can offer support for the educational process early on to make sure kids are reading, because there's probably not any more important thing that we can do than to make sure that kids are reading in 3rd grade.
The one other connection with that is when you drill down to the ethnic diversity that is Orange County, we are, as you know, a minority majority where no one ethnic group dominates. But we all know stories of Tiger moms and an Asian community that make sure that education is the top of their child's life in every aspect. Our largest growing ethnic group is our Latino population, which has that opportunity, that education attainment gap. We can increase everybody, we can even increase Latino attainment, but we can never seem to quite close this gap. And that's why I loved that this report focused on a lot of effort being spent to help elevate, educate that next generation of Latino, both parents and children, to understand that you can bring more money into the family by graduating from high school, oh, by the way, by graduating from college, oh, by the way, by getting that degree, and we can keep you here. So I think it's more than just a generic look at education. It's so complex, and the tools are really, it's getting the right tool for the right thing, but understanding our ethnic diversity in the county and focusing our challenges, I think could be very helpful.
So turn to page 24, and now everybody's done eating. Because I think this is another great opportunity, and you actually have the map, right? You don't have to go find it, you have the map. And so if the community writ large, faith-based, business, et cetera, focused on the most challenged parts of the map, you would really be able to start moving the bar. And think about it, 52% of the children are ready for kindergarten. That means 48% of the kids are not ready for kindergarten, and that will track with them through their entire career. So if you want a specific to focus on, you have the map.
Program's been great. Let's hear it for this great panel. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Jonathan.
The Orange County Forum is brought to you through the generous support of the Orange County Register and our sustaining partners. For more information about the Orange County Forum, call 949-588-9884. The Orange County Forum is a nonprofit organization. Your contributions are tax deductible.